Hey everybody, welcome here to Musicians Edition. I'm Evan on the guitar, and in this video we're going to be going into these little guys. And those are bends. Bends on the guitar, you'll hear them in a lot of different genres, most commonly blues, jazz, but they come up a lot in rock music too, in different riffs and solos. So you might have seen something like this on a tab. That arrow going up is telling you that you are bending, and we always bend, going up. So that's what that arrow is telling you to do. The amount next to the arrow tells you how much you're gonna bend. Just a little bend, a little bit more bend, or a lot of bend. Or that last one is a bend and release, which we'll talk about as well too, where we are going to strum, bend, and then come back down. So those are going to be the 4 types of bends that you are going to want to practice starting off getting into these. Now let's go ahead and look at the techniques so you can learn how to play these. So what we're doing here is we are increasing our pitch, but not by sliding across the frets like we typically do. We're increasing it by increasing the tension in the strings, which then gets our pitch to go up. So you can play around with that. So that pitch is going up, and it's helpful to have a tuner handy, or if you have a really good ear, or you can go back and forth playing some of those higher notes versus your bend and see if you can match that pitch. That's the control we do want to work on, is being able to stay in tune when we bend and being able to accurately bend to a certain note that we know is going to be in the key and that we can consistently get to. So for our technique on this bend, we're not just using fingers, and we're not just using one finger either. You're going to want to have 2 fingers planted, so whichever finger is higher up, usually that ring finger is going to be that higher one. That's the note we're actually playing. And we're going to go middle finger on the fret below it, and that's mainly there for support and strength. You can even do a 3rd finger with your index finger here and bend up with all 3. That's how you're going to get the most really strength out of it. Often I think 2 is enough. But if you feel like you're not able to get as high or control it as much as you should be, go ahead and add in that 3rd one, and you can have all 3 of those go together. What's important here too is you do not want to just use your fingers. You got to get your wrist involved. With just your fingers, you might not be able to get the strength or control that you would be able to with your wrist. So you're going to do a little bit of a sideways motion going up with your wrist, and then pushing up with your fingers as well too. So that's going to look like this. I'm going to have my thumb always on the top here. I'm going to turn my wrist into it a bit while I push up with my fingers. So resting, going up. Okay? So practice that and kind of see how high you can get those strings to push up. We're going to need to get them up quite a bit to get those full step bends especially. So you want to work on that strength and control there. And again, it's that highest finger, that ring finger, that's actually going to be the one playing, so make sure that one always stays in that same fret. Okay, so there's our motion, a little bit of wrist, with the fingers included, 2 or 3 fingers planted to help us out. So we can do cool things with bends where we can kind of mimic vocal qualities like a vibrato. We can go back and forth with our bend really quickly, playing along with our song like that. And of course, for that, we got to make sure we are staying in tune and get a consistent pitch each time we're bending. So starting with the basics, let's just practice some half step bends and some whole step bends so that we can get the hang of this. So I have a tuner ready, and so that's what I'm going to use for this. So I can see, and to practice, I think it is easiest to go on these 2 strings here. Not the high E, I feel like that's a little bit harder for me to control, but the G and the B strings right there are the easiest ones, I think, to bend. They give you a lot of space to work with, and they're nice and flimsy, I think. So pick one of those strings to practice with. I'll go ahead and use the B string, and I'll start off on the 9th fret. So we're going to go ahead and work on half step bends. So 9th fret of the B string, you should be getting a G sharp. So if you have a tuner, that's a G sharp. If you don't have a tuner, we're going to practice half steps, which is the same as going up 1 fret to A. So get locked into that A pitch if you're not using a tuner, and that's the one you want to bend up to from the G sharp to do that half step. So let's get our fingers ready. 2 or 3 fingers planted. We're going to hit it. If you got your tuner, you're going to strum and go up until you get that A. And you can strum over and over, doesn't matter while we're practicing. And when you got locked into that A and how much you have to move up to bend it, which for me is right there where I'm getting that A, as opposed to here, G sharp, up there gets me A. So there's that bend now, and that's that half step bend I'm getting now. If you're not using a tuner, you should be getting this same pitch. This is A on the 10th fret, as you would be by doing this. Okay, so lock into that. Half step. Same as moving up to A, 1 fret higher. All right, and of course we can practice on different frets, different strings, all that good stuff. We want to be able to do this all over the guitar, but that's the same idea that you would apply to all these other ones. Let's go ahead and work on a whole step bend. So we're gonna have to push it even further this time. We had a half step here, so we need to pretty much double that because a whole step is going up 2 frets. So if you're not using a tuner, you want to get that A sharp tone from this G sharp. So you want to go up that whole step. And we're going to figure out how high we have to bend to do that. So if you got your tuner, I think that's it. That still is the best way to do it. Let's bend. We can keep on strumming while we bend until we lock in that A sharp. And I got it right there. So that's how high I had to bend on this to get a whole step to A sharp from G sharp. There it is. So now we can do both. Regular, half step, whole step, and work your way back down to half step and regular. All right, so that is again a whole step, same as going up to A sharp 2 frets higher. We did it by this big bend right there. Okay?
This lesson is brought to you by the Musician's Edition practice book. Make goals and keep track of progress throughout the whole year. When you're done with this video lesson, don't forget to mark this practice time in your Musician's Edition practice book. Now back to the video.
So it's always good to practice the bend up to each of those, the bend up and release back down, because you might come across some of those as well too. Those are the tricks you want to start off. So pretty much what we had seen on the tabs at the beginning. So you have a little bend, which is a quarter step, which is like halfway up to that half step. So just a little bend. Then we got that half step bend right there to A. Then we've got that full step bend. Right there it is. Okay, and then we want that bend and release to practice too. Right there. Okay? And what you really got to make sure about is you're not clipping the higher strings. You might have just heard me do it a little bit there. Biggest trick for that is to cut your fingernails. That's the biggest thing. And you know, when you're looking at it, you can see it is your fingernails getting caught in that string that's higher, if you are catching that higher string typically. And so for me, even mine are a little bit too long where I'm clipping it like a little bit. I gotta kind of be careful to press my fingers flatter. So it's really good to have those fingernails chopped all the way down so you're not gonna clip that string, because you don't want that extra strings noise getting in the way of that bend, because it's not gonna sound as clean. But that is the idea behind bends. So remember, use that wrist, give it a little bit of a twist while you are bending up, and work on controlling those bends all across your fretboard. Work on getting quicker and quicker. We can eventually work on that vibrato bend where we go back and forth like that with it too. But that's enough to get you started with the basics of bending. So have fun playing and bending on those guitars, and we'll see you next time.